So we're going to solve system using inverse matrices. Okay, and I'll have everything worked out, but we're going to talk through it quickly here. Keep in mind over here that if we're going to solve ax times b, or ax equals b, we can't undo a times x by dividing by a. Okay, they're matrices. There's no division under matrix operations, but there is multiplying by the inverse. So what we would have to do is multiply a, right, ax on here, on the left, right, ax on the left by a inverse, and then over here, multiply on the left times a inverse. All right, when we do that, a inverse times a, that undoes multiplying by a. That gives me the identity matrix. So I times x, which is just x, would then equal a inverse b. So whatever the product here is, a inverse times b, would be the solution for this unknown matrix x. So if we apply that over here, right? So what we're doing over here is we're going to solve this system of equations right here, solve that system using inverse matrices, okay? So when you're doing that, first thing you want to do is set up your coefficient matrix. Let's go with red here, I guess. So notice here we have a 1 here, right? Applied 1, so 1, 3, negative 2, 5. So that goes right here. 1, 3, negative 2, 5. There's my coefficient matrix. 1, 3, negative 2, 5. Then I have my variable matrix, x, y. So you're going to have a little column matrix here that has your two unknowns, x and y. And then you got your solution here, 4, 3, that goes on the other side right there. So we have this matrix here, my coefficient matrix, times this variable matrix, this column matrix, and then my solution. So that kind of sets up my equation. Now to solve for this matrix, xy, what I want to do is get rid of this matrix. In order to do that, I got to find the inverse. So over here, there's my invert process for finding the inverse. What's the 11? The 11 comes from 1 over the determinant. What's my determinant? 5 times 1, 5, minus negative 2 times 3, negative 6. So 5 minus a negative 6 is 5 plus 6, which is right there 11. Okay. Now what do? I take the 1 and 5, flip-flop them. There they are. The negative 2 and 3, change places. Okay, negative 2 and 3. Now I distribute, and that gives me my inverse, A inverse. So right here it is. This is A inverse. 5 over 11, negative 3 over 11, 2 over 11, 1 over 11. Then what I need to do is multiply here on the left. Right here. Here's A times X on the left. Right here, A inverse. There it is. Over here, B, I got to multiply on the left. Okay, on the left. Now, when you multiply these two together, if we did everything right, which we did, this is going to be my identity matrix 1, 0, 0, 1. So now all I have to do over here is multiply these two. 5 elevenths times 4, negative 3 elevenths times 3. So I get 20 elevenths minus 9 elevenths is 11 over 11, or 1. There it is. Then I go down to the next row. 2 elevenths times 4, 1 11th times 3. So I get 8 elevenths plus 3 elevenths is 11 over 11, which is 1. Okay. And in the end, not that we got to do this, but if now at this point you multiply this together, I get 1 times x plus 0 times y would be x. And then going to the next row, 0 times x plus 1 times y would be y equals 1, 1, which that then has to mean that implies that x equals 1 and y equals 1. There's my final answer, my solution. Okay, so So that's solving our system of equations using inverse matrix. So here's our system, coefficient matrix, variable matrix, constant. Find the inverse of A. There. Multiply on both sides. Make sure you stay on the left. All right. Once you do this multiplication there's your answer for X and Y. Okay, so that's the setup, right? The process to solve. This is the work that you got to show. Okay, so this is the work that we should see when we're doing and solving these. Okay, so there's that. And then we have when you are solving a matrix equation, okay, when you're solving a matrix equation, then we have solving matrix equations here, a different matrix equation. This has multiplication involved, so we got to use inverses, okay? So we have A, B, C here, okay? And then we have this equation, A times this quantity, all right, equals C, all right? Now, there's a couple ways you could do this, but really what you should do is first solve for X using the letters A, B, and C, then go ahead and do the operations with those matrices. Okay, so I would not suggest subbing in here for A, subbing in for B, subbing in for C first, then working with that. Just work with this as is. So here we have A times the quantity X plus 5B equals C. All right. Now there's two ways you can go about solving this. Okay, we could look at both, and then the other one, I'm just gonna do the first step on this side. One way is to distribute. So I could distribute A. Now you got to be careful. You're distributing from the left side, which means you got to maintain the relationship that A is on the left. So when you distribute, A stays on the left. All right. So if I distribute, I'm going to get A times X plus, now 5 is a constant, so it doesn't have to stay on the left of 5, but it does have to stay on the left of B. So that would become 5AB equals C. All right. Now, that's the initial step of what you can do. Now, when we're solving, we're going to solve this one in its entirety, and then we'll solve this one in its entirety. So this one here, if I want to solve for X, the other way without distributing is I have to get rid of this A first. So to get rid of A here, since it's multiplication, I got to multiply by the inverse. So the next step would look like this. If I took A inverse times A times X plus 5B equals, and then I multiply on the other side by A inverse, but it has to stay on the left. This right here becomes just 1, like a fancy 1, and then I'm left with X plus 5B. So I have X plus 5B equals A inverse times C. And then lastly, to solve for X, I can move the 5B over, all right? And then I have my solution X is going to be equal to A inverse times C, and then minus 5 times B, all right? So we have that there. So we can do it that way. Or if we went over here, right, if I want to solve for here X, I can subtract the 5AB over. So then I would have AX equals C minus 5AB. And now when I multiply both sides by A inverse, I get A inverse times A times X. A inverse is on the left. So over here equals A inverse on the left times C minus 5AB. So now I have X equals that right here. And that you can have that as well. I can multiply A times B, multiply by 5, subtract from matrix C, then take all that times A inverse. But also if you just look, if I distribute this A inverse now, I get A inverse times C, which is right there. And I get A inverse times A, which is a 1 times B, this is going to be 5B, and right there. So no matter how you slice it, you're going to get to the same place. So in order to find now our solution X, we need to find this product, distribute the 5 to B, and then subtract the 2. In order to do this product, we need A inverse. So now I go up and I see what A is. Okay, so What is matrix A? Matrix A is 2, -1, -3, 0. So matrix A is, again, not full screen, 2, -1, -3, 0. 2, -1, -3, 0. I find my inverse. 1 over the determinant, 2 times 0 minus 3 times -3 times -1, which is 3. So 0 minus 3, so -3. So -1/3 times, switch to diagonal, change your sign, and then I can distribute and get 0, -1/3, -1/3 times 3, -1, and then -2/3. So now I'm good to go to start plugging in here. X equals A inverse 0, -1/3, -1, -2/3 times C. We go up here and we look at C. What's C? C is 0, 1, 3, 3. So I now have down here 0, 1, 3, 3 minus now 5 times B. I'm just going to distribute the 5 when I go up here. So 5 times B, 5 times this B, right? So 5 times -2, 5 times -2, 5 times 3, 5 times -1. So -10, -10, 15, -5. -10, -10, 15, -5. Now I multiply these two. 0 times 0, -1/3 times 3. We're going to have a 2 by 2 times a 2 by 2 is another 2 by 2. 0 times 0, -1/3 times 3, -1. 0 times 1, -1/3 times 3, -1. Then I go down to the next row. -1 times 0, -2/3 times 3. -1 times -1 is -1. -2/3 times 3 is -2. That's a -3 minus. And then lastly, subtract these two. -1 minus a -10, 9. -1 minus a -10, 9. -2 minus 15. -3 minus a -5, 2. All right, and then that's our solution. This is what that unknown matrix X is. So there we go. Done. Show all my necessary work. All right, if we show it on the screen, all right, that's what we got. At our original up here. All right, and then we could just follow down here, right? This to this to this to this, all right, all along. Okay, this is the work that would need to be done on the side right here. Okay, right here, all that stuff, that's to find your inverse. Okay, write neatly, show your work. That's solving the matrix equations. So you just solve this first for X. Okay, anytime you're undoing multiplication with matrices, you have to multiply by inverses. That's what allows you to solve for X. So that's the final little bit of review there for stuff we did and for the quizzes coming up. So look this over. Okay, you can rewind and watch as many times as you would like.